Okay, thank you, everybody. It is my pleasure to introduce your APWA president and one of the judges on the PACE committee, Bill Spearman.
Sorry, and Rhonda is past president. After a year of COVID and everything, I'm not sure that I want to go through this again without being able to see all these fine folks that are on this call and be able to have relationships with and good networking with all my good APWA friends and colleagues. So past president, Mary Joyce Ivers, of course, is your president, and she will also be on the committee. So that's what's going on there. First of all, congratulations. You have all met those eligibility requirements, even during COVID. And it's very important that your chapter has continued to serve your members in advancing public works and serving the community. It's also very interesting. Last year, we had 36 chapters that were eligible for the PACE, and 32 of those actually submitted. 2021, everybody would have said, guess what? It's really hard to do. So, but what happened? Again, we have 36 chapters that are eligible. And that's a really great thing. And you should all be proud that you've done that. The PACE Award is something that I feel very strongly about. When I became chapter president, well, actually, even before I became chapter president, I wondered why the South Carolina chapter never got a PACE Award. We were doing some fantastic things. And then I looked at the criteria, and one of those things was an awards program. And we did not have an awards program. So that was one of my first steps when, as president, was to create that awards program so that we could recognize the best and brightest, and also then be able to apply for the PACE. And we're glad to say that almost every year since, chapter has, and so I'm very proud of you. Many of you have gotten it multiple times. So I really am very proud of what you've done there. And that's really important. You know, basically, when we're looking for the chapters that have the contributions to positively impact their membership, the profession, and the community. We understand that this has been a very unusual year. Everything that we've done has not been normal. I can tell you that when I left Washington, D.C. on March the 12th, 2020, I never thought we would be doing Zoom meetings. We all believed that we would, within a month, 2 months, 3 months, just like the flu, everything would go away. But that's not what happened. But you all have stepped up, and you have, even with these challenges, you've done it. We're not going to modify the PACE Award with the capacity building requirements. They are the best practices. But really what you guys have done will help us all in the future. Good example. Many of you probably have attended some of our congressional briefings this past year with President Ivers. You know, think about that. When we would go before the Congress committee, only 1, 2, 3 APWA members would be there. But now we've had over 200 on one and almost 250 on another because of this media and the programs that we're using now. You know, but I want you to make sure that you do submit for the PACE Award. Just because you can't check every box is okay. Instead, really strive to demonstrate what value you have been bringing to your members and to your community. Next slide, Rhonda. You know, I think in reviewing this will be my 3rd year in reviewing the PACE Award. You know, we spend a lot of time in the executive summary and your chapter summary parts of it, because that's where you can really tell us what's going on better than in a checkbox where you just check off a box and so forth. It's kind of like an essay question. You know, really write it so that you can talk about those innovative programs and efforts, and then the resources that you've allocated to support members and your community. And then what have you done in the past year to improve chapter capacity and to address and take your chapter to the next level? You know, I've seen a lot of great programs around the country as I've participated in, with chapters joining together, regions joining together. You know, make sure you highlight these things for us so that we will know what's going on. Many of us do know these things, and we will be advocates for you as we go through this, because we want you to be shown as the best and the brightest of our chapters. And hopefully you will also be an encouragement for other chapters, because I can tell you from my perspective, I would love for all 63 chapters to get a PACE award, because then we would be doing everything as an association to meet the needs of our members and our communities if possible. Do you have any questions about the 4 categories that we're going to be using for the evaluation? They're the same, you know, the membership, service to the chapter members, advancement of public works and sustainability, and service to the community. And I see some chat. I can't see the chats, but I can see some numbers coming up, so I'm not sure what's really going on there. But Tammy, have we got any questions in yet?
No, we had a question about length of this webinar, but no other questions about the PACE award specifically.
Okay. Does anybody have, based on, you know, what we've talked about so far regarding, you know, not changing the overall criteria, but possibly, or the way we will judge won't be quite as much of a pass fail, but it will be from that essay perspective of you covering the important things there. Any questions like that? Because I'm sure you have. I mean, I can see a whole lot of folks out there that I know and have worked with. And I know I saw Jason Peak before I switched off of the screen. And, you know, Jason is one of those people, just like Darcy and all the others of you out there. I'm sure that you've got some questions about how to do it this year, because it is a little different. So I'd be more than happy to, between Rhonda, myself, and Tammy, be able to go through and talk a little bit about it in more specificity.
Sir, this is Clay Engelman. I actually had to take a phone call, so hopefully I'm not asking a question that you did cover already. But the biggest question I had to get clarification on was, as I started kind of typing up our PACE award, I realized, especially when it comes to the evaluation category of the service to the community, with the past year with COVID and everything, we had a lot of events and different things that were planned and obviously didn't happen because of COVID, whether they were suspended or whatever the case may be. And so to not sound like a broken record, when you're talking about those events and outreach programs that we had kind of set up that didn't happen, are you wanting those in the PACE where we kind of talk about the things that we planned on doing and what we did, and the fact that we're going to plan on continuing to do those, but unfortunately it just didn't happen this year?
I think being able to talk about what you had programmed is very important. And then also then reflecting on, you know, we've seen there are multiple priorities and everything across the country regarding what you can do and what you can't do. But reflecting on some of those outside forces that affected your ability to do some of these things, I think is very important. Because some of us have kept up with it over the year, but maybe other people have not on the committee. And being able to actually have those things there, like, first of all, the governor would not let us, or, you know, our city would not let us, or so forth and so on. But these are the things that we had planned. These are the things we've done in the past and what we plan on doing in the future. Does that help?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay. I think the real key is here is, especially on the service to the chapter members, how have you interacted with your chapters and with the membership of the chapters over this past year? We've had several groups that have had golf tournaments. We've had several groups that have had outside rodeos and other types of outside training. And if you've done some of those things, even on a small scale, make sure that you highlight those because that's very important because you were being creative. If you've done better newsletters or improved newsletters, highlight those kinds of things so that we can see what in. I was always told, show me, don't tell me. So those pictures, those other things that you can really put in there. And I think that's very important when I look over, potentially 36 of these, being able to, pictures help me a tremendous amount. So anything that you can do like that to give us a visual of what was going on, I think is very important.
So Bill, this is Eric Jones from the Oregon chapter.
Hey, Eric, good to see you.
So I encourage the review committee to also keep in mind that in addition to COVID, some of our chapters, Oregon is a good example, had to cope with other natural disasters. In our case, wildfires, smoke, and it just between COVID limiting our access and then the priority was not to put our public works folks in a rodeo, for example, but to get them out there closing roads because of wildfire. So I just encourage you, the review committee, to recognize there was a lot going on in 2020 in addition to COVID.
Yes, and I really appreciate that, Eric, very much. And those are the stories that you need to tell us. I mean, Texas was impacted by that god-awful winter storm, and other places around the country with wildfires and other things that really impacted the priorities, if you will, just like you were talking about. So make sure you highlight those. Don't be ashamed, because in reality, you were serving your community. We had communities with civil unrest and other things going on there that also impacted it. And if you've got one city that I know of, there was a nice newspaper article about the public works folks putting out everything before the peaceful protests and then cleaning up after the not so peaceful protests. So, I mean, those kinds of things really show that service to the community that the APWA members and the industry was really was helping with. What else?
Yeah,
This is not a quiet crowd, so that's why I'm.
I know. I thought this would be a lot of questions because there's so much. I know that you guys have called me, so I was really hoping that I put Bill here on the spot because he's a judge and he can really help you guys on your, it's not going to be, I know it's not a cookie cutter. I know you're going to be able to have to put more into it this time. So I was hoping that, especially when it came to those 4 main areas, if you had any questions, now's the time to ask.
Yes.
This is Claire with Tennessee chapter. We've done the PACE application for years now, and my question has always been, what we focus on is what our communities are doing. It's not always under the banner of the Tennessee chapter of the American Public Works Association, but they're all members. So that sounds like what you're looking for, and it's kind of what we've had to do.
And I would say, Claire, that you've been successful in the past. You do need to highlight your service to your members. I mean, there needs to be the programs for the members because they are the real important things. But when you start dealing, given everything that's gone on, that service to the community as well as what the industry is doing in the communities. As you said, most of our cities, at least in a place like Tennessee, are cities and counties are members and support. So it is interrelated there.
Okay.
And I think the real key is this is going to be a challenge to you guys in putting together your application, because I can tell you that in the 3 years, there's a whole lot of cutting and pasting. And every now and then we get a track change version coming in. And every now and then you see a picture of a person that was there maybe 2 years ago and wasn't there this year. So, and I tend to look for those little nuances. It's not enough to ding you for not getting the awards, but usually that's in your letter you get, don't do these things, folks. And so this is going to be a challenge this year for you guys as you work through almost a new application, if you will, because of the things that we've got going on.
I would also like to add to make sure you use the current best practices that's on the website. It's been updated. Yeah, it has that, the second screen kind of had what it talked about COVID, but when you're filling that out, I know, Bill, you judges like to not just see yes or no, but if it is no, why? You want an explanation, put a comment in there. So I do remember that being said. So please use that. It's actually was updated. You're going to find, I think, Tammy, we actually removed some and kind of
Yes.
combined some. So it's going to be easier, but use the newest best practices.
There's a
Yeah,
question in the chat that says, what would you consider a weakness in reviewing the applications this year, considering the uniqueness of 2020?
I tend to compare when I review them, and I don't know if I'm muted or not, and I'm okay. I tend to look at them almost in comparison. So until I get one of these from this year, and I have kind of a baseline to establish, looking against the checklist and what you've written up, that's a hard question to answer. Those of us who took the professional engineers exam many years ago, before it was multiple choice and other things, we looked for points and it was almost a comparison. Jason's smiling. That's why I'm laughing too. I will be comparing things against each other and really setting that baseline to say, this is good. I can tell you that I am a pretty lenient grader when it comes to the PACE award, because the very idea that you've qualified for this already gets you some check marks in my evaluation. And so I definitely appreciate everything that you've done. So I think probably one of the weaknesses, as you talked about, is going to be service to the community from a chapter standpoint, because you have not had a lot of events, the things that you've been able to do. But I know in certain cases, you probably still offered scholarships of those, or internships, or other things like that. And that's service to the community. Chapter members, webinars and other things you've done, those are there. And just that advancement of public works, being that advocate for public works, following the strategic plan, showing the value, showing the voice, being that voice of public works, that face of public works, very, very important for you to be able to do that. Your education, again, I could almost just take the strategic plan and say, okay, out of these 4 components of the strategic plans, then bam, those are the kind of things that I would really try to focus in on too. And I saw Eric had a comment that Tammy, you and Rhonda will have to address about the date. I know it was sometime we looked at it, but I don't remember a date either.
Rhonda, the question is there a date or other mark on the current best management practices form so we know that we're using the right one?
Out of my own, I think so. I mean, it will say 2020 on it, but if you're going to go out to the website awards on apwa.net and go under awards, go to PACE, and it says download best practices, you're going to get the right one, because that's the only one I uploaded. So I would go there, and then I know I put it just on Chapter Leader Resources, and I'm pretty sure it does say 2020. So those are the only 2 places you can get it. So I'm confident you will download the correct one.
Hey, Bill, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hey, Bill, this is Ryan from South Carolina chapter. It's nice to hear your voice for a year or so. You mentioned a letter or criteria response letter from APWA that we received. This is my third year submitting the PACE award. If we didn't get a hold of that last year, who do we speak to about getting a copy of that?
Me?
Okay.
And the odds are that, well, but yes, the odds are, traditionally we highlight things that we think you could improve on.
Right.
And so that could also play into some of those that basically you were meeting the basic criteria and that, but again, Rhonda would be that person that would be the first person to find there.
I would have a copy. So yeah. And is this, what chapter are you with, Brian?
South
Right.
Carolina chapter.
South Carolina. Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
And for everybody's knowledge, I do not rate the South Carolina chapter. That's a disclaimer that I'm doing. I say that's a conflict of interest, and I do not want to have any perception of that from my ethics and integrity. So I will not be rating the South Carolina chapter submission.
Thank you.
Bill, I'm curious, one of the things that we have heard a lot about in the last year is, even though chapters may not have had the manpower or energy to do all their own programming, there was a lot of cross promotion of other chapters programming or promotion of programming that National APWA was doing. Is that a component to include, or is that part of the consideration for PACE?
In my mind, tell us everything. Anything that fits into these four criteria, and then based on these four criteria, four components, and then also looking back at the prior. And would you put up the one previous to that too, Rhonda or Tammy?
Sure. This is that chapter summary that they have to answer. Yeah.
And that's really one of those places where you can really talk about those things, what you've been doing to take advantage of some national programs. You've participated in the chapter leaders. You've encouraged folks to participate in the PWX at Home and other programs, or even the town hall that was just held prior to this. Those are the kinds of things that show that you're at least making the chapter membership aware of these kinds of opportunities. And that's a real important part of what you're doing in the virtual video age.
And this is just my observation, Tammy, again, from your committee judging last year. But while you said, tell us everything, I think I also heard the message that 30 or 40 pages is a little much, right? There's an everything, but there's some limit to that.
Well, everything, minutia is not everything. So that's why I like an executive summary. I like something that in 3, 4, 5 pages, you basically tell me the important things that you've done, supplemented by pictures and other things. Because like I said, if every one of you gives me 40 pages and we've got, 36 of you, I start to get bored after a while. I'm ADD enough that that's a problem. But if you give me 4 or 5 pages of really good in-depth information that I can and that can even highlight some of the things you didn't do well. I've always been important that, tell me what you didn't do that you want to do better, because that's an improvement. That's excellence when you can do those kinds of things.
Do we have any other questions?
Rhonda is available.
Yes.
And if need be, she can definitely, canvass the members of the review committee for any clarifications. And, but again, I'm very proud of you guys to have 36 chapters, our fear was we're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or how many we're going to actually be eligible to do this. So I'm very proud that you have all stepped up to serve your community, serve our membership. And so, again, this is one of those farewell things that I'll be doing, at least probably being on here for this year. It'll probably be either President-elect Brown, who will be coming in, or else past President Ivers, who will be at that position. But, I just have to tell you guys, this has been an experience for the past 9 years on the board, but past, however many years in APWA. That's something that I'll never forget. And I made some really good friends here. I look over the screen and see a lot of folks that I've had the opportunity to work with. Others, I would have gotten to see you over the past year and a half if things had been different, and I would have loved to have been able to do that. But thank you for your service. Thank you for your interest, even in getting on this phone call and this video. I mean, that's something that's it's very telling. And I know I appreciate you. Your chapters appreciate you, the industry appreciates you, and staff, they definitely appreciate you. And so thank you for an experience that I'll never forget. Thank you for your friendship. Thank you for your support, and look forward to reviewing your submissions.
Well, Bill, I actually have another question. This is Eric Jones from the Oregon chapter.
I can see you now, Eric. That's good. I couldn't find you before.
Okay. Well, I had my video off just like Rhonda told me to until
Good.
I asked my question. So my question is that, and it kind of gets at the number of pages in the application, there are subcategories from the criteria. So membership is a good example. And there are 3 subcategories: net membership, gain, loss, and retention, membership recruitment efforts and programs, C, evidence of innovative membership development and retention efforts, and so on. Each one of these main categories, the 4 main categories, has specific subcategories. And I sort of felt like I needed to put something in each of those subcategories. Am I missing something?
No, I think you should. I think also those that are applicable. I mean, the real key is if you've had a major agency member that for whatever reason has dropped out, I would definitely highlight that. And it can be timing, it can be budgets, other things there about those. But I mean, I think, and I will have to applaud our membership department. They've done a fantastic job of pestering the heck out of people that don't renew. And that's a good thing. And I definitely appreciate that when they follow up very quickly, 2-3 months out, it's coming up. And then after it does, trying to follow up to find out why. And hopefully they can have some of that information for you if these are some major agency or group memberships that can help you, maybe even fill in those things, Eric.
Yeah, I just did this slide on the 4 main topics, but that doesn't mean you don't have to answer the subcategories. I just did this for space and presentation.
Okay, anything else, folks? Like I said, Rhonda is definitely available. This isn't her first rodeo with the PACE Award. And then Tammy's been very, very helpful in giving us a little, sometimes a different perspective on things. And so I definitely appreciate that very much. So, and again, we're here to help. I can tell you there will not be an awards ceremony like we've had in the past in St. Louis because of COVID, distancing, and other things, but we will be highlighting our winners, whether it's the PACE Award or other things. So I definitely appreciate it. And I can tell you, I am looking forward to seeing you all in St. Louis. Hopefully everything will work out. Staff is working very hard to make this happen. We've been meeting with the convention center and folks there in St. Louis, and we've got a plan submitted, and we're waiting on everybody. And unfortunately, sometimes politics gets involved in science, and that's not always a good thing. So we're trying. Staff is trying very hard to make this thing work so that we can have an event to be able to get back together.